Hey everyone, E3 continues, and as E3 actually kicks off, in which people are going to the show floor and seeing things like crazy Dark Souls 3 stands in which there is blood spurting out of someone's stomach because there's a fake sword stabbed through it. I really wish I was there to see Dark Souls 3, and maybe this video just might be about how I don't get to play Dark Souls 3 at E3. But anyway, we're here to talk about Nintendo's press conference, which happened earlier today, but I've been busy working, so I haven't had a chance to have a couple of minutes to sit and chat with you guys about what's actually happening at these press conferences and file some quick reactions. The last two press conferences were pretty short. We had Nintendo and Square Enix, but let's kick it off with Nintendo. They started things off with Star Fox Zero, which is being made in conjunction with Platinum Games. It sounds like Nintendo is collaborating with Platinum in a similar way that they collaborated with Metroid Other M. Sounds like a lot of the design work is happening at Nintendo, a lot of the artwork is happening over at Platinum. And, at first glance, it looked like Star Fox Zero was actually sort of a remake of Star Fox 64. Star Fox 64 is the one I spent the most amount of time with when I was younger. I actually spent an incredible amount of time playing the multiplayer, where we would have so much fun in the one mode where one person would be floating around on the R-Wing and three other people would be on the ground with rocket launchers trying to shoot them out of the sky. Like, the idea of playing four-player blurry split-screen co-op on a Nintendo 64 on a TV screen that was probably less than 30 inches is just ridiculous to me now, but we got so much mileage out of that multiplayer mode back in the day. So I probably would have been okay with just a remake of Star Fox 64, but it seems like with Star Fox Zero, it is not a sequel to any of the Star Fox games in particular. It is not a prequel. It's more of like a reboot, a hybrid. Nintendo's going to pluck whatever elements they want from the Star Fox series and kind of experiment with it from there. And it really does seem that it's a very experimental production. One of the things that they're doing is that when you're kind of in the big open spaces where you want to see what's around you, you're looking at the TV and controlling your R-Wing there. But in order to do the very precise shots that you need to take down some of the more meticulous enemies, you need to look at the gamepad, in which a separate reticle is featured there. And all the impressions of the game so far suggest that that's the primary control method to play Star Fox Zero, which I think is going to prove controversial because in all the hands-on impressions I've seen, both from Steven Totillo at Kotaku and some other ones I've read across the web, it suggests there's a pretty deep learning curve, and it's hard to know, is that a learning curve that's the result of people just getting into this for the first time, playing at a show floor, or even in a private demo is not the best way to kind of come to grips with the new control scheme? Or are we all secretly just hoping they're going to put in support for the Pro Controller or support to turn off the gamepad stuff and allow you just to play the game how we have normally played Star Fox games in the past? Hard to know. We don't get a whole lot of insight into any sort of storyline. The one thing that was in Steven Totillo's report was that it doesn't sound like branching paths are going to be a huge part of Star Fox Zero. They have said that replayability, which has been a mainstay of the Star Fox franchise, will be there in some form. It seems like the way they're approaching it is more of a linear storyline, but reasons to go back to previous stages and play them in different forms, because one of the big things that's happening in Star Fox Zero is the fact that your R-Wing is no longer just an R-Wing. You can transform it into different little vehicles. I forget what the actual names for them are, but one of them is where you land on the ground and a little thing gets out. It's kind of like a drone that can get into really small spaces. Let's see if I can I'll just pull it up so I can actually get a sense of what the other ones are. I had them in the top of my head and then just completely kind of blanked on them. One that kind of looks like a raptor that kind of like makes its way along the ground, and all that stuff seems to change in real time so that you can modify between multiple types of vehicles when you're in a level, but you don't get access to all of them necessarily the first time through a stage, which would necessitate playing through the game again, through different levels again, in order to access secrets that you didn't see before. I don't know if I prefer that approach over Star Fox and Star Fox 64, which I both think had the branching path in which the way you navigated to the end of the game, which usually only took you about 2 hours, but allowed you to play the game multiple times to experience different things over and over again. We'll have to see. Have to say that I thought it looked interesting. I do like the Star Fox series, but I wasn't exactly blown away about what they were showing. But hey, it's a Nintendo game. It's a Star Fox game. I'm going to play it. Hopefully it turns out really well. From there, that was really probably the biggest announcement about Nintendo. We'll kind of do a wrap-up on what I think that says about Nintendo as a company later as we near the end. But they announced that there are Skylanders support, basically that there's kind of an add-on for some Skylanders toys to work as amiibos as well. There's sort of some cross-functionality that's happening between the two, which makes a lot of sense. as someone that doesn't own any amiibos, doesn't really have any interest in owning an amiibo, and does not play Skylanders, that seemed like the kind of feature that I go, huh, that seems all right, but yeah, okay. The next thing up was The Legend of Zelda Tri-Force Heroes, which is a sort of a kind of callback to the Four Swords adventure games that I know people were big fans of, but I didn't end up playing a whole lot of. So with the Tri-Force Heroes and Four Swords Adventures, it's where they kind of turn the Zelda tropes on its head a little bit by making you play with other Link-like characters. And so one of the things that's happening in this game is it seems like the clothing and fashion is a huge element of it, in which you go into different dungeons, and that's going to change elements of the dungeons. It wasn't super clear to me exactly how exactly that's going to play out. Plus, I was busy writing up the Star Fox post and filling that up with details while this trailer was playing. But I'll say, crucially, the reason I didn't play Four Swords Adventures was because you had to crowd a bunch of people around a GameCube. And then the reason I will maybe play this, no guarantees quite yet, is that at least with this one, it's online multiplayer. It's kind of weird that that has to be something that we celebrate with a Nintendo game in 2015 or in 2016, as the case will be with this game when it's actually released. But that is still sort of a thing that when Nintendo announces, you go, oh yeah, like that's cool when they do that. The thing that everyone else does to make games more convenient. Not to say I don't see Nintendo's point in having people play in the same room isn't very cool or a different experience, but it also means that sometimes you don't get a chance to play certain games, and it's one thing with a small indie studio that can't necessarily dedicate the resources to doing online multiplayer, can't find a way to accommodate that. With Nintendo, it is a deliberate design choice to not kind of go down that route. So thankfully, Tri-Force Heroes is going to have that. They confirmed that Hyrule Warriors is coming to 3DS. I, for a while, thought I wanted to play that Wii U game, and then it just kind of came and went. And that's probably what's going to happen with me and the 3DS version as well. Probably most disappointingly, which should have been a major announcement, was that Metroid Prime is coming back on the 3DS, except that it turns out it's actually that game that was premiered at the Nintendo World Championships. It's called Metroid Prime Federation Force. It was called like Blix Ball or something like that at the Nintendo World Championships. Anyway, they essentially are creating a co-op Metroid universe set game where you don't actually play as Samus, and you don't seem to be running into a whole lot of things from the Metroid universe. It seems like they're essentially making kind of a follow-up to Metroid Prime Hunters, and it just seems like no one really asked for this game, and it's just kind of a way to infuriate franchise lovers of Metroid or Metroid Prime, wherever you kind of come at the series. To look in the corner of this screenshot that I'm looking at now, and it says hashtag Metroid Prime, and it's like, how disappointing would it be to wake up and be like, oh god, I forgot the Nintendo press conference was happening, like, oh my god, a new Metroid Prime, especially after everything that happened at the Sony press conference last night, and then to finally realize, like, no, it's actually not the game that you thought it was going to be. It's just a co-op, goofy shooting game. Just incredibly disappointing, and I don't know what Nintendo's desire here was to announce a game like this without having something complementary to it. It wouldn't have shocked me if they were showing off, okay, here's kind of a 3DS, Metroid game that we've got coming in the short term, but we're also working on this bigger, more ambitious, the kind of Metroid game you want, the game you've been demanding while Retro has worked on, admittedly, 2 excellent Donkey Kong platformers, but that's not necessarily the game that everyone wanted them to keep working on. And it just seems like maybe that's not going to come to the Wii U. Maybe that is going to be an NX project at this point, if we have gotten this far into the Wii U's life cycle with an announcement of a new console on not quite the horizon, but the distant horizon. Seems a little bit odd. They also announced that Fire Emblem If, which is coming out really soon in Japan, I think later this month, it's coming out in 2016. We don't exactly know what that means, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was early 2016, say January, February, March. Very much looking forward to that. Loved the last Fire Emblem on 3DS. Will happily take another one of those. There was a release date for Xenoblade Chronicles X, which I've heard kind of middling things about insofar as how that game turned out. I didn't really care for Xenoblade on, was it just called Xenoblade on the Wii? Xenoblade, I guess it was Xenoblade Chronicles, and this one is Xenoblade Chronicles X. Okay, all right. So I didn't really care for Xenoblade Chronicles because it had sort of MMO style combat, and it just really didn't do anything for me. But it seemed like the people that do enjoy it like it a lot. So hey, hopefully you're excited about Xenoblade Chronicles X. There's a release date for Animal Crossing Happy Home Designer for 3DS. Animal Crossing board game. is coming to Wii U. You would have thought for a half second, are they really doing Animal Crossing for Wii U? Oh, yeah, that sounds awesome. Can't wait. Nope, it's a board game. Why are you doing this? Why are you showing this at E3? Why are you treating this like a normal Nintendo Direct? It's probably going to be a totally okay game that's maybe passable, and a bunch of us will just pass up. But you know what? Why are you showing it at E3? Metroid Prime, Animal Crossing, both shown at E3 2015, except not in the form you wanted. They did show Paper Mario meets Mario Luigi in a brand new game called Mario and Luigi Paper Jam, which seems actually like one of the more inventive mashups / reinventions they've done recently. I tragically have not played any of the Paper Mario games. I've always heard they're great. I know that people say if you're going to play one, go back and play Paper Mario. I think it's 1,000 Year Door, the one on GameCube. Thinking about getting around to doing that, given that there's another Paper Mario coming out. Of course, I say that about a lot of games and then don't get around to them. So, hey, just add it to the pile of another game that I should probably play that I won't. But this one looks pretty interesting, and obviously, you know, the Mario and Luigi games are fantastic. I've played 2 of those, and I really enjoyed them. So maybe this is, just another stack of the pile of great Mario RPGs. And I'd really love and wouldn't mind if they went and did sort of an HD collection of those other Paper Mario games for the Wii U. Maybe think about it. They also announced Mario Tennis Ultra Smash coming to the Wii U in holiday, whatever that means. That's a very vague sort of release date. And really, that's kind of where things ended up. They showed more off of Mario Maker, I guess Super Mario Maker. Probably the coolest moment of the entire press conference, if I'm being quite honest, was when Miyamoto sat down with Tezuka. I think that I always get his name wrong when we don't have it in the post. Anyway, it was like, you know, the co-designer that he I'm gonna look it up. Tezuka, Nintendo, Mario. Yeah, Takahashi Tezuka. So I was right. And they sat down and showed like the original graph paper they used to design the original stages for Mario, and kind of walked people through the process of making those stages. And it made me think the entire time, Nintendo, I know you don't open up yourselves to a lot of coverage, but please let someone do a documentary about the history of Nintendo, or do it yourself, because the little snippets that they showed were actually fantastic. I would just, to know that there is graph paper sitting around of 1-1, and then graph paper you put on top of that to show the changes to 1-1. Please let someone document that. Put it in a book. Put it in poster form. I would love to hang that on my wall, or put it on my iPad wallpaper, or just make a documentary so we know more about all this historical stuff you're just sitting on and no one does anything with. Drives me nuts. But as I bring this little commentary to a close, I think what you're seeing with Nintendo at E3 2015 is a combination of a couple of things. One, they do Nintendo Directs so often that it's not a surprise they don't keep everything for E3 the same way other companies do. So it wouldn't surprise me if later this summer or in the fall there are the regular Nintendo Directs that we get all the time, and suddenly, wow, like where was all this stuff at E3, Nintendo? But they drip that stuff out so that they're able to get you coming back for all those Nintendo Directs, getting excited over and over again, and just being exhausted by the sheer amount of just excitement and disappointment you have to constantly put out for this company. But they always put a smile on my face. Nintendo is my favorite company in video games, even when they're not lighting me on fire with their lineup. But I think also, you know, this is an instance in which the NX is going to be revealed in 2016. My guess is it wouldn't be super shocking to hear details about the NX later this year. But if they really want to get people to come out and buy an NX, you know what you do? You hold your big guns for that. Does that mean that Zelda's getting pushed back out of Wii U onto NX? Maybe. I think it's possible that Zelda ends up straddling between the two platforms the way Twilight Princess did. Does it mean that Retro's, whatever their big, ambitious new game, you know, Metroid Prime, whatever, is that going to come out at NX? Maybe. I wouldn't be surprised. But I think that, you know, Nintendo with the big guns, that's not going to happen until E3 2016, or whenever they get around to starting to talk about what's happening with the NX and how that kind of fits into their entire playbook, because really, that is their big next move. So why would they want to do anything more than just kind of quietly stoke interest in the 3DS and the Wii U, knowing full well they're going to want to pivot at some point? So it's kind of the game you play with these corporations, in which they tell you, get excited, and you're like, I'm not excited, but they want you to get excited later. So that does it for Nintendo at E3 2015. I'm going to close this up with one more video about Square Enix's press conference, in which there's not a whole lot for me to say because I'm not Mr. JRPG, but we'll respond to some of the stuff that was in there. You can check out all the other videos that respond to the rest of the press conferences here at youtube.com/PatrickKlebeck. And throughout the week, I'll be doing some other reaction videos, kind of weighing in on different things, and maybe do some live Q&A on Twitch and Periscope. So stay tuned for that, and I'll talk to you guys soon.